I will first of all introduce the panelists, and then they will be joined by the opening presenter. And leading this panel will be the moderator, the co-founder of the Biocatalyst Foundation, leading the Baltic Biotech Hub initiative across Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and Poland. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Igor Sberkovits. Welcome. And joining him on the stage for this next talk is the head of the Innovation Hub at the Latvian Institute of Organic Synthesis, leading knowledge transfer and driving collaboration, Ms. Anna Steikane. Welcome. Joining them also is the president of the Polish Association of University Knowledge Transfer Companies and the head of commercialization at the Institute of Human Genetics, Polish Academy of Sciences, Mr. Jakub Jasiczak. Welcome, Jakub. Next, he is the vice president of the Lithuania Bio, forwarding national biotech strategy, early stage innovation, and international collaboration in Lithuania's life sciences sector. She is Ms. Agne Vaitkevičiene. Welcome. And joining them for the opening presentation, let's welcome him on the stage, the Chief Scientific Officer at Bioinnovations Institute in Copenhagen, bridging science and business to turn them into real-world solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Markus Hergard, welcome.
Thank you.
The stage is yours.
And thank you for the opportunity to give a brief keynote here before the panel and also the opportunity to join this panel. So a little bit about what we do at the Bioinnovation Institute. We are a non-profit funded by the Novo Nordisk Foundation. Primarily, we can work with other funding sources. We are about 80 people, so quite a large setup. This is not, we are the people who run the institute. It's not the people doing the work on the startups. We have funded 140 startups since 1998 with 150 million euros, give or take. And our startups have raised 850 million euros in additional financing from external sources, primarily equity capital, but also some grant money. And so far, by our most recent count, they have created directly 850 jobs in Denmark, plus we don't count the jobs wherever the CROs or other services that are used, so we estimate about 1,500 to 2,000 jobs total. So we're pretty happy about that. The way we work is that we work with universities, hospitals. We also get industry spin-outs and spin-outs from the community, but our primary focus group is academic researchers, helping them spinning out their companies, creating their ideas, bringing them to life. We work through very well-defined programs that we have evolved through the years, so we have 3 programs left after starting with 7. So one lesson for innovators, keep your programs very simple. If you do the EU thing with hundreds of different programs, it's super hard for people to navigate them. So we've also learned this. So our primary instrument is Venture Lab, which is this funding for startup companies, early stage startups in life science, €500,000, 22 new companies per year that we fund through. So we try to create enough volume also to create big cohorts. We have a follow-on called Venture House, that's 1.3 million euros. And that's primarily to make the companies that are the best companies more investment ready. And then we also do a venture studio called Bio Studio with projects that are a little bit earlier stage, TRL 1 and 2, starting with that and making into a spin-out company with transformative technologies. And that's a blended instrument of about 3 million euros of grant plus convertible loan to get the company launched. What we provide in addition to the money is our network. I'll talk a little bit about that. Our team. We have quite a lot of people. We are not just like sitting there. We are working with the companies. We are advising. We are helping them with different challenges. We give guidance, of course. And then finally, founder-friendly funding. And I should also emphasize that because we work with a lot of first-time founders, our job is partially teach people how to be CEOs, how to be commercial, how to realize whether they're going to be that person who runs the company in the long run or whether they need to get somebody else on board. But they find their right role, and we are not there to force them into a certain kind of job, but just give them the opportunity to run a company for a year or 2 and see if that works. Usually people are actually better at than what one would think. Our companies have so far launched at least 23 products on the market. And have initiated at least 7 clinical trials and actually much more than 5 field trials, about 30 or so, because it turns out you run them in different countries. And we're very happy that the companies, again, have leveraged our funding to raise more than 6 times more money from external sources. We work mostly in life science. We also do a little bit of work in quantum related to communications and dual use areas, but that's a fairly small part of our portfolio. We work both in human health and in planetary health. And I'll just highlight a few, so that's our whole portfolio. I'll highlight a few specific fields that we've been very active in. Women's health has been a specific focus area for us for about 3 years now. We built what is probably the largest portfolio of women's health companies for somebody who actually invests in them. So we're not a pure accelerator, we invest in companies too. And that's a source of great pride. We've tried to really convene the European women's health ecosystem around regulated women's health solutions. We've also been pretty active in the AI and quantum field. So minority in AI, majority in quantum, focusing especially on health technology solutions, but we've even done a little bit of AI and quantum in the planetary health field. And finally, on the planetary health side, we've been very active in biomaterials and chemicals, working with different ways to use biology to create new materials and create new ingredients. And that's been really exciting, doing things like furniture pillows, all the way to very advanced chemistry. So this is our whole portfolio, and we are proud of every single one of the companies. Not all of them are doing so great. Some of them are amazing. The best companies have raised 200 million euros or so. Many companies have raised very little. Some are probably not that operational anymore, but that's all the portfolio that we have funded. Just a couple of examples from our portfolio. I'm not showing here the unicorn type things. I'm showing here some of the more recent cases from the last year or so that we have funded that are doing interesting things. First company is actually a Dutch company called Rapidemic, working on infectious disease diagnostics, but packaging it into this sort of convenient format. Instead of having some sort of complicated set of mixtures, it's a single device, very cheap device to manufacture, and because it's cheap and it works and it's compatible with standard infrastructure, otherwise doesn't use any expensive custom PCs. The Gates Foundation has chosen it as one of the platforms to bring to market in sub-Saharan Africa for STI testing. The team is actually a combination of enthusiastic young founders and grizzled industry veterans from big diagnostics companies, just working out the best path to market. The second company called Visibuild, this is a Danish company working in a very difficult space, replacing asphalt with a more biological solution, which they managed to do. This founder is amazing. She was working in another startup that was in the food tech field, decided that she would like to use her skills in fermentation in something a little bit more exciting than food, decided to go into asphalt. It's quite a transition. Now she's making asphalt for this new project that will connect Germany to Denmark in, I don't know, some tens of years once they dig the whole tunnel, but it's been tested as something that you can use to make new roads. Still a bit slow to settle, but it's a pretty interesting technology, and it actually works. Been on parking lots where they've paved them with this material. So a little bit about the ecosystem effect. So we are part of this big machine here on the left that is run by the Novo Nordisk Foundation. So Denmark has a pretty unique system of having foundations that can own companies, creates interesting opportunities for public-private partnerships. But we also work with both Danish foundations. These are also attached to various companies. We have an investor network of 200 international investors, corporate partners, and also work, of course, with public funds, including the EU, but primarily Danish public foundations and public sovereign wealth funds. What is our long-term vision? We are not happy just being in Denmark. We are very much building up for a network across Europe, and I can maybe get to that a little bit later. And we are also expanding into a broader range of deep tech fields. As it makes sense. We like to stay close to science-based entrepreneurship, so that will be the guiding principle. So there are plenty of ways to engage with us, but I'm just going to leave this up here. But anyone who's interested, you can follow us on LinkedIn. You can go to our website. We have a summer school where you can learn about life science entrepreneurship in particular, mentored by our people. And finally, if somebody's interested in our venture lab, that's call is open. And if anyone's interested in joining any of our networks, that's also possible. And if you are in Copenhagen, always welcome to join our events. Thank you so much.
Inspiring presentation, and I would also like to remind the audience that Denmark is a country of 5 million people only, so this is quite an achievement to create such an ecosystem, and we need to learn from the best in that sense. I guess it's pretty obvious that regional collaboration is important, especially if we as Europeans want to compete with Boston region, US, China. So how do we do it? How do we build collaborations on a regional scale that actually work? And I would like to start with asking panelists. We have members of representatives of different countries. What are the things that really worked for you in the regional collaboration so far that you can share with the audience? Okay.
Point one. Okay, I can start. Thank you for having me here. I represent the tech transfer community from Poland, so like 133 units from 100 research institutes and universities. And I'm not a typical tech transfer guy because I do love TRL1. So we are not the kind of guys that waits for scientists to discover something, throw it over the wall to us, and then we commercialize. So we are not only like a salespeople. Of course, sometimes it happens that there is good solution, scientists come after ending the research results, and it's good enough to implement on the market. But for me, the more important issue is to inspire scientists to do impactful research. And when we think about cooperation, my first reaction is what is not to cooperate. And I have like two definitions of this. First is selfishness. When you look at the way some universities or rectors of universities, for example, act, they go directly to the company and talk about cooperation of their university with this company. The problem is that they are already taking the all, like talking to the company about cooperation. When you approach the company, they will tell you, but we already cooperate with this university. So you cannot take the whole attention of the company. It's better to talk what the whole ecosystem can do for a business, for example. And the second thing, when I think of what is not cooperating, is this fear issue. So the scientist that is too afraid to discuss his idea, to attract company, for example, and to go to partner university or a research institute and say, come on, join me. So like for me, cooperation means, and I will give the example of my scientists at Human Genetics Institute. These guys are doing basic research, TRL1. And they ask me, Jakub, we have an idea for a research project. Can you test it on the market? And what we do as a tech transfer, we ask, for example, big companies like AstraZeneca or GSK. We talk with smaller Polish companies like Alab Laboratories. What do you think about this idea? We get the feedback from the market. We ask hospitals, for example. We ask our friends in different universities, because in life science, everything is too complex to do it independently. So the magic happens is when scientists will ask us at the beginning of the research, in the idea phase, and we will test it on the market, and we will give them people from different backgrounds, scientists from economics, from IT, mixing medical and economic institutions is the best. And in terms of regional cooperation, and this is precisely why I came for your invitation and to do this, is that we would really like to join forces in Central Europe, because we are too small. Even if Poland, it's bigger than Latvia, but it's still too small. In my perspective, in my world, it's all about doing this science diplomacy together. So let's join forces, Czechia, Slovakia, Poland, Baltic countries, and let's show the potential of this part of region to the rest of the world, and especially to the Western Europe, that we should cooperate together. So I think about research and the way they should be impactful in that way.
Thank you. I think that's a very insightful perspective from a different country than Latvia, which is much bigger, but it's good to work with you as well, I think. Okay, Agnes, sorry.
Yes, so from Lithuanian perspective, I'm a very practical person, so I think there's collaboration happening in multiple levels, but mainly based on personal basis. So someone knows someone, scientists try to find another scientist to that work in a similar field. You try to connect, you go to the conferences, and this is how these collaborations work. In some cases, in Poland, in Latvia, in Lithuania, in Denmark, there are particular organizations or structures that help to facilitate these collaborations, yes? So question is what kind of these facilitators work and what doesn't work. So I think that from academic perspective, what I see, I'm from industry. So what I see from academic perspective in Lithuania, there are a lot of collaboration happening between university teams in Poland, in Latvia, through all the Nordics, in Western Europe, everywhere. There are a lot of programs funded by academy at some stages, like, okay, let's do now joint programs for Nordic and the Baltics, or Nordic and Lithuania, Latvia and Lithuania. It's some kind of like a fashion week, a fashion years, so let's do this collaboration. Now we will fund joint projects and so on. So it's kind of not long-term collaboration approaches. From industry perspective, these international collaborations are really rare. For instance, I was always advocate for why do we not collaborate with Poland just across the border? You have amazing institutes, companies, and the ecosystem. Why not with Latvia? Why not with Estonia? We don't know the ecosystems that well. Why we do not know who is in those countries? Because we definitely know Novo Nordisk and all the Danish companies and institutes and Sweden, and we do already know them very well. They're very well promoted and open to collaborations. In our region, we do not see this openness for collaboration. This is what I think that there has to be some facilitation programs or initiatives or organizations from all the levels, scientific, industry, and government as well, that could help out and foster such collaborations. So that's my point. Sorry.
Yeah, and from my point, I am a TTO person within Latvian Institute of Organic Synthesis, but I'm going to comment more from the academic perspective, from what we've seen in our institute. So we've been very successful with attracting different science funding grants across the region involving different international partners, and that is one way that definitely works to bring us together and talk about and develop technologies together. The next stop is to actually take it outside of those scientific labs in collaborating in the tech transfer aspects, and that's what I like from what Jakub suggested and what Agnes suggested, and we know that those international programs for that step also works, because we were in one project called BioConnect recently. That was me and Agne and some other, and the Biocatalyst Foundation, and we came up with this actually a strategy and mapping about what we can do as action plan within the Baltics to kind of raise life sciences together. So that is a first step to work for, but this only so far works when we have a program that facilitates. I think at some point we also need to switch our mindset and understand that when we work together, we are stronger, we can show a region that is very powerful and we can do stuff together, and maybe proactively not looking for the funding and not looking for that the facilitation, but proactively look for each other and join forces to work together. That's my perspective.
If I may jump in, I had one more thought before coming here, and I forgot to mention that. So we actually... Oh, just lost that thought.
It will come.
Sorry, Igor. I will remember. Go ahead.
Comment. So while I know the topic is a bit on regional collaboration, but at the end of the day, at least in my mind, we have not found it particularly... Geographical proximity hasn't been terribly important. It's been whether you have the same mindset, you're trying to do the same things, and the same type of expertise, I mean the same fields. because ultimately what you need is people who are working in similar fields getting together. Then you find the complementarities. Well, we talk a lot about cross-disciplinary, but it's kind of difficult for a quantum investor to invest in life science, or a life scientist to actually talk to a tech investor. That's not a very meaningful thing. So the regionality, it does have some benefits, of course, because sometimes you have some funding instruments that are joined, that apply to that, but without those funding instruments, I think it's quite difficult. So we have decided that we are not that regional. We fund fairly broadly in Europe, and we'll follow also what the Novo Nordisk Foundation is doing, which is to increasingly fund research in Europe with some anchoring in Denmark, but not very strongly. So again, this goes to the last panelist and discussion about too many constraints. We're trying to avoid creating too many constraints. That's one of the weaknesses of EU funding schemes, that they tend to be a bit too much overhead. I mean, it's a nice idea, but like to create the collaboration, you sometimes have such a high overhead that's not worth it. But the good news is that we, among other people, and our parent foundations, they're very much thinking now about how do you create most value for society, rather than employing as many people locally as possible. And that is actually an interesting perspective, because then you broaden it immediately and say, who do we work with to create the right products that create value, to solve actual societal problems, whether they're in human health, planetary health, or supply chain resiliency, or European sovereignty on whatever topic. So good news in that sense.
Your region is a whole Europe, or the whole planet Earth, basically.
Yeah, sure. So we like to, of course, to get money from a certain country, you need to have some connection to that country typically, but the understanding is that just like the Gates Foundation is not a US funding agency, they fund globally. That for a public for a foundation to have an impact, they need to think globally. So I think that's good, and that's what Wellcome Trust also thinks. So that means that there are more opportunities for European players, because many of the foundations have been very country specific. And then sometimes you get in a nice situation like in Denmark, and sometimes you're in a situation where there's no funding, but there's actually a lot of good science. So I think that's the mentality, sort of convene around the same themes that will create the value. And I think it's great to hear also the collaboration within Latvia, for example, between different sectors in pharmaceuticals. That's something that needs to happen.
Thank you. And well, it's pretty obvious that collaboration is beneficial, but why it's not happening as we want it to happen? What do you think are the biggest obstacles from your experience, like biggest bottlenecks? Why we're not there yet? Why don't we have, one pan-European ecosystem? Okay, even like Baltic Sea innovation, biotech innovation ecosystem. Like, why we're still very fragmented?
I remembered, and it's connected to that question. So, if we're looking at the CE region, yes, so have a very fragmented or specific skill sets in each of the countries. For instance, let's see Latvia. Latvia is very strong historically in organic synthesis, yes. Lithuania in biotechnology and enzymology, and now gene editing, yes. We take Estonia, digital technologies, and they're not overlapping as much as we would think, that could create much stronger collaborations. In Poland, more on manufacturing, because the capacities are there, more available clinical trials, and all of that are more attracting value creating basically for the whole Europe, for instance, or globally. So that was a good point, what we can offer, yes, what kind of value we can create. Because there are horizontal things such as entrepreneurship, talent creation, startup development, all of these, they go through all of the countries you can take, yes? There are a lot of gaps that we can fill in, and even empower more on collaborating between the countries, because it will help out on sharing knowledge, sharing talents, having a particular, funding support much more stronger, for instance, if joining together, collaborating more. But from technological perspective, we have very specific contents that we're working in each of the country. Probably there are some activities like biomaterials, we can find matching places and so on. So this mapping that we did for, trying to evaluate what kind of companies, technologies, academic skills are have much higher value in each of the countries really help to get more of the focus and trying to look how we can combine this value proposition of this collaboration as well.
You ask about obstacles, and I see three. First of all, in Poland and Central Europe, we don't have deep tech private investors. They are still into let's have some app and let's earn money fast mode. Second thing, we have this problem with motivating scientists. We as an organization, we developed 231 spin-offs and did more than 3,500 R&D projects, but it was against the system, not because of the system. Why? Because our scientists are not motivated, rewarded for doing so. You must publish and have some didactics, that's it. Going from the comfort zone, going to the business, try to implement the solution, this is really hard. And we have a system that is not encouraging. And the third thing, and this is something what we try to do, we call this system a smiled bubble. It means that we have big EU companies operating in Poland with factories, but whenever we approach them and we have our own ideas for R&D collaboration or like prototype concept, they don't know what to do with us because there is like a production in Poland, not R&D. You have muscles, not brain. And we tried to do something with this for last 1 year. We talked with management boards of 34 big EU-based companies, corporations, and 8 of those agreed to go deeper with Polish scientists. And to sum up, we now have like 40 challenges from those 8 companies. And the fun part is these are not only for our scientists in Poland, but for Central Eastern Europe. And we publish them. So that's why if you are like interested and to have an inspiration from big company like GSK, Roche, Orange, they are ready. And they are not only to wait for research results to buy. They want to, and this is important. I never heard this before. I heard this 2 days ago in Warsaw. Management boards of those companies said, we would like to mix our teams, our scientists and your from universities, and do TRL 1 stage. So create innovations together from the early beginning. And this is something new, but we are still struggling to convince big companies to do R&D with Central Eastern scientists.
So they're testing you. They're testing your scientific capacity.
Now there is this trust. It's different.
They're testing, because we have Thermo Fisher Scientific, which has an R&D department in Lithuania, in Vilnius, and it's actually one of the major drivers of our life science ecosystem growth. They are collaborating very closely with universities, not just in educational programs, but also R&D. They collaborate with startups. During COVID, they collaborated very closely with startups in developing new compounds. So it's all based on, when we speak to them, they're our members of our association. Main is the talent pool. So they have to test it out, the talent pool they can use in that country and so on. And this is what we mentioned, that in order to attract more of these R&D, we need to share knowledge and talents and improve their skills in our region in order to attract these.
We need to solve their challenges in order to attract them.
Yes, to solve the challenges, you need scientists who has good brains.
Great.
But I guess it's also good to remember that corporates need new innovations, so they're always eager to find something if you can offer it at a reasonable complexity, right? So they don't want to spend all the time in the world to find that. So if somebody can help them find the right kinds of stuff, they'll be interested. It doesn't matter where it is. Yeah. The other people who need stuff is investors. They need to find deals to invest in. But again, it's a question of time spent. If it's very complicated to identify an opportunity or it's very immature stuff, then it's very difficult for an investor. It's difficult for us. That's a lot. What we do is working with very early stuff to try to make it investment ready for somebody else. So it's a lot of trying to get enough volume, and that would be the collaboration element. How do you join forces so that you can actually offer big enough touch points that it's worth for people to talk to you? It's very hard if you're an individual research group or a single startup. You're going to do a lot of work to find everyone who might be interested in working with you. So I think that's something that we can really, really foster better. And that's what US has done really, really great, not only because it's a little bit centralized into a couple of locations, but also by creating Y Combinator and plug and play. We had people from there. These are all mechanisms to channel things through a bigger funnel so that it's not so many different separate programs.
You know, on the other hand, sometimes this is the mental state that they don't want to know innovators, because we do a lot for them, like a tech transfer. And despite that, we did like at every university 200, 300 projects, they still don't know about the tech transfer. And for example, those research agendas are one, but our Polish TTOs with commercialization reactor, now they have this offer between Latvia and Poland about mixing entrepreneurs and scientists to build startup teams. It's easy to see this, to access, to talk, and sometimes the inventors, they don't want to know. It's like their world of invention and their project only.
And I think that's, speaking of how do you motivate scientists to do things, the best I think one can try to do is to just to communicate the successes, the good stories. And not so much from the commercial perspective, because scientists are not there really to make money, to be honest, almost never. But by what did they create, what was the value? How cool it was. It might not attract the 50-year-old professor or 60-year-old, but it will attract the 20-year-old PhD student or postdoc. And that's what we do this consistently. We work with the universities. We try to inspire. We even target it at the universities where we think more should be, innovation should be inspired. So I think sometimes we undervalue the role of communication and storytelling. We know that in the startups, but we undervalue how important it is to inspire people to go on the startup path, go on an entrepreneurial path.
And especially now, because when we talk like with Polish Science Academy, with institutes, their researchers are there because they want to do something meaningful, the impact. They are not there for money. If they would like to go for money, corporate. And to motivate and show them this direction, that this is possible, this is crucial. And whenever we talk with directors of institutes, it's like, make those opportunities to develop, to implement for this impact. They are here in science for the impact.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all about the stories and the role models, I would say.
Yeah, we need success stories in the region that we can point at. Look, you can be like that whatever famous company, or I think that's a really good point. And to sum up, I would like to ask you like one question, like two questions in one. How do you see the future regional biotech ecosystem in like in 5-10 years from now, and how do you see the role of your organization in this future that you hope will happen?
I had my slide on that, so we'd like to create, and we'd be want to be part of financing that together with other partners. I mean, we are on a fundraising journey ourselves there, but we have our funding, but we're not going to fund things all by ourselves. But that's what we're doing. We're looking at different hubs, looking at how we can create together with universities, governments, private funds, foundations, a European-wide life science ecosystem, and maybe expand that to deep tech in the areas that are difficult to fund in general, that require this kind of larger network of investors and corporates and the like. So that's our plan. We're pretty sure we'll get there, one way or the other.
Yeah, from my side, I would like to take what we discussed today and actually work together. And because we had lots of great ideas and initiatives of how to bring industries and industry challenges to Poland. We are here in the previous session. We heard about this BioFood project. We also are thinking along the similar lines, and it's great. We are thinking along similar lines. Let's work together on these things. And I think this is what I would like to see in like 5 to 10 years. Actually, next year. Why wait for 5 years?
And from my perspective, I would like to see the Central Eastern science without jealousy and without fear, and believing in synergy, that really doing it together and like cooperating in the real time without fighting who has the power and contacts. This is pointless. This is devastating for science. So really, co-creation of impactful innovation. This is like my future dream.
Industry already changing, moving towards not already, it's already happening. They're more collaborating than competing. So the same with the science. It should move faster in this way. How I see there's a great opportunity for the region, for the Central East Europe, for the Nordics. There are a lot of challenges Europe faces at the moment where we can show the capabilities, what we can do. And I think that in collaboration together, we can create much more value and show how we can become a part of those solutions that are more like global. In biomanufacturing, in developing new technologies, in biosecurity, in biomaterials, in all of that. And I think that we already are doing that, but in very small scale and very individually. And and we can improve the growth much faster if we start working together, but there are multiple things how to achieve that with, you know, even going to the cultural things, personal things. We are young in this area, relatively young compared to Western Europe, in this entrepreneurship, into this mentality, although there's a drive, there's a motivation from entrepreneurs, young scientists, not all of them, but some percentage of scientists that drive and create, and I think that it looks very positive for the region. So at least talking about it, it's one step closer to achieving that.
Thank you, everyone. Just as a final word, I would like to add that we're currently working, actually several members of this panel, and I hope the rest will join, on we call it Baltic Biotech Hub Initiative, that we already drafted the plan, what we want to do, and now we are planning to implement it, and we're looking to apply for different European funding sources to get up to 16 million euros in the project and to really keep it going. So keep an eye open. It's not yet happening, but I'm pretty sure it will happen in the coming year or so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to the panelists, and thank you to our moderator for the excellent work. Thank you for putting another puzzle piece into the story of collaboration. Wow.